9 states that have given us the data. It's essential to select a business station for 35%, important for another 25%. So over half are saying this, something like 60% are saying this. 29% are not sure. Well, I think that's going to be changing more quickly than they realize. As for staying, it's even more significant. If we don't have it, we have to leave. And that, especially in the rural community, that kills the community. Because those 6 jobs or those 20 jobs or whatever that is, where are those people going to go? Or are they going to have to move out? Because there aren't any new jobs locally. But there are tremendous opportunities. It's how do we take advantage of that? In terms of what access means, the definition, the FCC definition of 25.3, well, half of businesses don't have broadband by that definition. And I'm showing you the upload speeds. Download speeds, you're consuming. Upload speeds to us from our econometric analysis show it's the upload speeds that have the correlation between new revenues and jobs created. That's the biggest impact. Besides, the other one, the other biggest coefficient, I'm speaking in econometrics terms, but the other biggest factor is experience with using the internet, with doing things online. And that's kind of obvious to us. The more you're doing these things online, the more you understand, okay, here's what it is, here's how I can incorporate it in our operations. A factor in why, actually I'll get to the other slide on that one. But in terms of broadband speeds, I've actually pulled data from the 2 studies we did across Kentucky in 2010 and 2012. So the download speeds, well, I hope that much has changed in the last 4 to 6 years. We don't know what those are right now. Well, there's FCC data, but we've collected, these are actual speed test averages between rural and urban in those years. So you can have the advertised speeds, what are reported to the FCC, but these are the actual speed tests. And they're actually pretty low in some of the cases. Obviously, Tennessee has done some really interesting things, and they've got some pretty decent speeds. And in terms of upload speeds, again, same pattern. And it's actually, in terms of breaking it out, in terms of the numbers, 70% of rural businesses do not have 3 megabits per second upload speed. And in urban areas, it's 47%. So there's a big job ahead. How to address it? There's some questions that can be answered and some business models around that. We'll go into some of those things tomorrow. I'll touch on it today. A factor in this is that ISP choices for businesses. Over 35% of the businesses have only one choice for an ISP. And we all know, hey, competition is a good thing. It drives you to do better. In businesses, it's healthy competition. But it's even more important for that community in that region. Costs are also a big barrier. People have this expectation of paying, I'm not paying more than $70 a month. After that, it's a barrier. And we see in the Tennessee data that, even though they have access, hey, they're covered in that 25 download, 3 upload, broadband footprint. But you know what? They're not buying. They're buying the base package. They don't understand. Oh, why would I pay more? And it's that value to them that needs to be communicated. And in case they have great broadband. Chattanooga, you've all heard about Chattanooga? The gigabit. We had Chattanooga, no surprise, in the speed tests and the download speeds. They're at the top of the state in terms of download speeds and upload speeds and so forth. No surprises. And they've done a lot to invest in that community and turn that around. And they're the closest shot of gigabit. I suspected that in terms of utilization, they wouldn't be fully utilizing, but I was surprised to find out that they're only 2% above the state average in their level of utilizing that network. So you've got this great gigabit network, but you're only 2% above what the average for the rest of the state is.
Is that with the business community or?
Businesses.
Okay, business.
And so we met with EPB And we're actually putting a project together in Chattanooga to actually drive that. But that's, I mean, it represents a huge opportunity. You've got the infrastructure, a huge cost is there. Let's get the people now understanding what they can do. Hey, there are some great successes that they've had in attracting people. There's some businesses doing really well. But for those that took the assessment, we have the data shows what there's a lot that remains on the table for them to work on, and that has a big impact. And the infrastructure costs are huge. The driving this use is a fraction of that cost with huge benefits, and you're making the network more sustainable. And that's sort of the key message.
Michael, do you think that this lack of a broader, in-depth understanding of what broadband actually makes possible in business is the fundamental stumbling block across the board? I mean,
Thank you for capturing that. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. And tomorrow I'm giving a workshop. Roberto's going to lead off the day. And then after that, I do a workshop around getting into the specifics of why that is happening. Got the data to show it, but fundamentally, I think we can all understand that the smaller the business, and you have the data to show it, the smaller the business, the lower level of use. Why? Well, you have these people that are doing everything. They're the CEO, account manager, and chief bottle washer, and everything in between. They're working 10, 12 hours a day, and keeping up with all these questions. I have 30 things I hear about Twitter, Facebook, this, CRM. I don't know where to start. I don't know what it means. And have these vendors all trying to sell me something. They don't understand what's possible. And it's not like a road. A road, you can either walk it, transport something on it, or drive it yourself. It's pretty obvious. But, with the advent of these smart devices and the internet, there's millions of things that you can do online. What are the things that, for you as a business, you could and should be doing? And that's the key, and that's what we're going to get into more tomorrow. I'll touch on today.
A question about the impact on the economic base of Chattanooga when they adopted the fiber. Is there as big of a jump between just having access to broadband and then having access to the gigabit per second fiber versus not?
Yeah, that's a good question. We get that a lot. I think I'll have to go sidebar on that. There is but to summarize, there's a huge jump to go from dial-up. But it's still available, but most anyone has, more than dial-up these days. The jump to fiber is not as significant. There is a jump, but it's more on what you're doing. Is that knowledge? Because even on lousy broadband, there's more things that you should and could be doing with the cloud services that are open. You can act like and look like a big multinational company, and you've got 5 people because you've got all these cloud applications. You don't need to have a server farm, on premises. You've got all these tools. It's the know-how that matters. And so we can talk offline about those, and it's a whole other presentation. So I have to stop myself there, if you don't mind. Because I promised Kevin I'd try to wrap it up in half an hour. And, I'm going to go a bit over, Kevin, I'm sorry. Takeaway 3. It's more than just speed and availability. So speed, you need to have it available. Key factor for site selection. But just because you have it doesn't mean people use it. The analogy I keep drawing up is, we built this great interstate highway infrastructure. Fantastic. But we haven't given that small business doesn't have a truck. It hasn't taught its drivers how to drive stick. And we haven't given that business a map of where it can go with that truck. And the gaps in the businesses that we see are, I'll go through that tomorrow. And that's, for those 70, for that 25% that are at the top, great, let them go. Go forth and prosper. As Roberto pointed out, it's that 75% that don't know what they don't know. How do we help them cost effectively? To go from that crawling to walking stage, and then they'll be running on their own. Because that's where huge economic opportunities are per those impact estimates that we developed. So getting into speed. The challenges when you bring that broadband in, there's advertising that happens. Households, it's pretty obvious the demand drivers for that. It's going to be the kids. You know, gaming, videos, even the it's discretionary income. I want to spend $100 on this or $200. I need a break. You know, I want to just watch these shows. And speed matters. They get speed. Large businesses, there's a difference. They have now turned the corner. In the initial period of us measuring this from the RF stimulus, from 2010 to 12, it's the small businesses that were leaders. And that first chart I showed you. Big businesses have gotten it now. You know, those 250 employees plus, they now have hired IT staff. They even have IT directors. They're driving that change now. They get it. And so, do you need to explain the speed? Do you need to explain the speed to a technology guy? No, he or she understands it, mostly you, unfortunately. It's changing, but they get it. And so, with small businesses who don't have that expertise, don't have that capacity, what's it mean for me? How's that? And they're making cost-benefit decisions. You know? It's not discretionary. You know, does this pay off? And they're sticking with lower. They're not investing. They don't know what the ROI is of that. So, don't focus on speed. And for SMEs, it's the utilization of matters. And this is the biggest gap that we have. So, putting that into context, we have, this is the technology adoption curve. Since the 50s, Jeffrey Moore that put down, wrote inside the tornado. You have the innovators, you have the early adopters. They get it. That's that, in this case, in the broadband, it's 25% that are at the highest level of utilization. The rest of the 75% are the early majority, the late majority. The laggards, well, they still have those flip phones. I still have flip phones. I don't use them anymore, but I still have them. I like them. But how do we help them, personalize the value of this tech, spending my time and money on this? What's the ROI to me? Don't tell me at 10,000 feet level. Tell me what this means to my operation. How does it grow my revenues? How do I reach new customers? How do I do, streamline our operations, offer new services? Until you have answered that, well, it's nice to have, it's not neat to have. And why is that? In small business especially, they got hard priorities to focus on. Affordability of those expertise and services, and that's what we're getting into tomorrow. How do you help them understand what's possible and then give them the support? To me, this is not only an opportunity for the economic development folks, it's workforce development. Because as soon as the business starts realizing, I should be doing this online, the first question they ask is, who can help me? And those are good paying local jobs. Lack of those external support resources. And I think that there's a lot of resources here in organizations. I was impressed how many resources in organizations are here. SOAR, KDD, EKSET, SCED. So many acronyms, but I've heard most of them.
Innovation Network.
There we go. How do we not connect them? And I want to work on that tomorrow in that workshop portion. It's going to be pretty hands-on. So we have to overcome these challenges. Help them understand. I think it's workable, and we're doing that. Actually, we're working on a project just like that, an ARC funded project in Alabama over 3 years, helping the business understand where they're at, helping them, advise them, and then connecting them with local resources over 3 years, and we're going to track the impacts of that. So we can say, yeah, we spent this much on the programming, but look how many businesses, did something about this, and here are the impacts on their revenues, on new jobs created, and here's the impact on the tax base. And from our research, every dollar invested in this kind of program is a $35 impact increase to the local GDP. So why are we building these networks? Well, there's the current demand, active demand, which the telcos look at, and then they say yay or nay based on that business case. There's latent demand, which is the Google approach. Hey, who wants to sign up to this fiber bill that we're going to connect up? As soon as we reach 75 customers in this neighborhood, we got it. We can build it. Until we reach it, it doesn't make a business case for us. But here's the thing that we're uncovering, is that potential demand. They don't know what they don't know. And that's for most small businesses. And that potential demand, for us, is that economic case for investing in this. It's the economic base of the community that we're trying to help, which is off balance sheet to those carriers. In terms of the availability, as I've already said, there's availability. Just because you have it doesn't mean you connect to it. And just because you're connected to it, doing email faster, surfing the web faster, is not the same as having e-commerce, as collaborating with peers all over the country, all over the world, reaching customers all over, not the same. And here's the key point, I've said that already, but it's the utilization that is growth. If you're just doing your email faster, our data shows it's the use that is actually the growth creation. And so I've already talked about this in some point, but for the private sector carriers, you can't fault them for this. They got to invest based on where the returns are. And even Google has that approach. They've gone a bit further than most carriers, and that's fantastic. We're working with Kansas City, the first Google Fiber project. But helping those small businesses in Kansas City understand, hey, you've got this fantastic access now to the internet for $70 a month or $110, whatever it is for businesses now. Do you understand how to use it? But that's where Kansas City comes in, and they say, look, we have an economic case for investing in this, with the small business technology development centers, with economic growth, with the city, to help them understand when these businesses are using this technology, they're more productive, better quality jobs. I mean, we've gone over this already. It's covered today. But these are community benefits that far, far outweigh the network benefits, the carrier benefits. So there's a significant rationale for investing. That's why we built those economic impact estimates to give to this. I've given it to each of the states. Say, here's your estimate, so that you can go to the legislative session. And when they said, and we did this earlier this year, all 50 states went out to them. I was asked to do this for a panel for the King's Summit. But what I was asked to do is, where are we at with broadband? And having over and over again states say, hey, they love what we do at our broadband office. But then in the second week of the legislative session, it says, yeah, but we can't raise taxes, so we can't give you more funding for what you want to do. Well, I think that also happens at a regional level and the community level. Well, if we can now quantify what those benefits are, let's keep that discussion going with what's possible. And personalize the value of broadband to those individual levels. You've got to work at a macro level, at the community or regional level, hopefully at a state level too. But it's really, regional level is where I see the future of these things, because the state is just too many moving pieces, too many different interests. At a community or regional level, you have more of a group that you can work with and have common and shared goals. I think they all should be coordinated at a state and hopefully level, but it's at a regional level. You've also got to work at a micro level, that individual business and organization, and even those home-based businesses, a micro business. Hey, you could be making a couple more $100 a month, and that helps them significantly. But they need to understand what the benefits of this technology are, going online, using these applications, help them drive the meaningful use of that, and then help them take a business case. And as Roberto said today, this is a process. It's ongoing. You've got a lot of the organizations that are already in place to do this. Help them understand, what they have available. Take an assessment. This is based on best practices that we've learned over 15 years that I've been doing this in this kind of work. Not only quantifying the benefits at that community or regional level, but how do we accelerate that process? Give them feedback, give them personalized, here's your plan, here's what it means to you, personalizing it, and then at the end, tracking it. After you've introduced them to the local vendors to help them do it, track it. Hey, you've done this, you say we're going to do this, did you do it or not? If no, why not? Is there anything else that could or should be done? If yes, great, what's the impact on your revenues, on your cost? Have you hired anybody? So we can tell that impact story. And that's what, fundamentally has driven me in this work over these 20 years, is to help tell that story, to quantify, hey, broadband is good, here's how good it is. But also now, here's how we actually take advantage of it. And the win-win-win is local business retention and expansion through the technology, through the broadband, and the meaningful use of those applications that are online. Good paying local jobs. Hey, these businesses, need help getting online. They're growing. They're hiring more people. And all that is local economic growth. So I'll go into this a lot more detail tomorrow, more of a hands-on experience, sorting through these things, but as a summary, that's an overview for today. Thank you.
It's okay if we're finished early today. Anybody going to complain? I really appreciate all of our speakers today. Appreciate our staff. Appreciate Kevin and helping them organize this in partnership with KAD. His staff have been that's been terrific. Tomorrow morning we're gonna get kicked off, and I'm gonna open up just with a few minutes tomorrow. And I've got a copy of our blueprint that the SOAR executive passed in November. And I think as you read through that, you're going to see some of these themes infused into what we're trying to do in Eastern Kentucky. So I'll have a copy of that blueprint. If you want to get online and read it, it's on our website. I know everybody's just dying to do that. SOAR-ky.org/blueprint. It started out as 380 pages 2 years ago, and it's 20 pages now, with 7 streamlined goals and what we're working towards. So go check that out, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the morning. Other than that, have a great evening. And there's plenty of places to eat in town, or if you want to drive, they're within 5 miles. There's other places. If you have any questions, just ask us. Enjoy your stay. Wear a coat if you go outside. It is winter time. So have a great evening. Appreciate everybody being here today.
I know it's the end of the day. There's a lot of material that has been covered today, and I just want to make sure we're up on the screen. And I'm going to... Great. I'm disconnected. I'm still good there.
You're good.
Well, something unplugged there. At least it's not unhinged. What I want to do, I'm not going to take the full hour. I know it's been long, a lot of material has been covered. I've been asked to hold this together. And I'm not going to be able to cover all those things. What I'm going to focus on is, our job. When I started SMG back, I've been working this over 20 years now, and I don't feel that old. But apparently I am. And my birthday just last week just reinforced that. But, the question I had 20 years ago, even then people knew broadband was good. The question as an economist, how good is it? How can we show what those quantifiable benefits are so that we can justify those public investments that are needed? Hey, get those private investments made. But just like other public goods, like utilities, roads, water, electricity, there are areas that are not going to make a business case for those private sector guys. And this is a fourth utility. If you don't have broadband, you're not part of the game. If you're not connected, you're not doing those things online, you're not part of it. So how do we quantify that so we can justify what we're doing already, but expand that? And that expansion is not just what I call the supply side of broadband, making it available. It's critical, but it's how to teach people how to use it in a meaningful way for social and economic development. So I'm going to jump in right away with, look, there's some significant jobs that are being created. Over 36% of all new jobs being created are because of what businesses are doing online. And that's up from just below 30% from a few years ago. Huge impacts on job creation. And I'll get into some of those details on those numbers. By the way, for anyone that wants a copy of this slide presentation, I'll make it available through SOAR. But how do we get out these numbers? Well, as an economist, I said, well, where do you go to get these, this data on new revenues or cost savings or new jobs? It's not in the statistical agencies. We have to go out and collect on our own. And we've done that now across, we've done 9 statewide data collections. The last one we did was just Tennessee. And it's for organizations like a state government, like a regional government, communities, even some of the carriers and so forth. And what they want to understand is, what has it meant to our local economy? Where do we invest? Where are the impacts? And also, how do we use this technology to actually accelerate that process for economic development? We know it's an opportunity. Everyone here in this room understands that. But what are the tactics and strategies we can apply? And I think we've gone through some of those today, some great examples. I'll go through some of the data that shows what those definitions are. Roberta, I think, did a good job of framing the issues. Well, let's frame some of those broadband issues that we're coming across, and we have the data to show on that. So, takeaway number one, the broadband impacts are driven by meaningful use of those internet applications. Just connecting to the internet isn't going to give you what you need. And to better understand what we're talking about or how we define this, we measure the meaningful use of internet, and we're agnostic to the technology. Whether it's a DSL or cable or satellite or fiber, it's what you're doing online that matters. And can you do it? It's just like an electrical outlet. If you plug it in, you're not thinking about who the power company is and how many volts and amps that you're getting. You just know that it works when you want to plug it in. The same thing should be with the internet. It's what you're doing that matters. And we, over the last 15 years, have been measuring across all industry sectors. What are those things that you're doing that are cut across? So from simple things like, transferring documents, doing email, buying online, to some of the more difficult, sophisticated applications like selling online, delivering those goods and services online. Social networking, which is a big thing, and it's not so obvious these days about how to go about it, but we're seeing in the numbers, those are having the biggest revenue impacts. And in terms of those revenue impacts, we're seeing that those companies that are at the highest level of use, they understand what the technology can do, they've implemented time and capital to implement these solutions. Well, those that are the highest level of, between the 1 and 10, those at the highest levels, 8 and above, they're generating, 45 and 52% of the revenues online. Those that are below 8, we define those as underutilizing. And here's a key statistic. Those two bars, 8 and above, they represent less than 25% of all businesses. But they're generating 75% of all the new revenues from online activities. That's pretty significant. So what we're seeing is those who are online are eating up market share. If you're not online, you're not getting found. And it's going to be harder and harder as more and more customers and doing those searches. When you go look for a place to eat, to shop, do whatever, people are going online more and more. They're expecting. If you're not there, you're not being found. So, especially for those small businesses, and this is a key thing. I pulled up some of the statistics to reference. For under 20 employees, 72% of those small businesses are underutilizing. They're the ones that need help. We talked about a digital divide. So, great what we're seeing happening, huge impacts, but are we seeing it throughout the local economy or those regional economies? No, we're not. And I'll go through some of the numbers. In terms of why these businesses are doing these things online, these are some of the metrics we capture. So we have a 20 to 25 minute assessment survey. We call it assessment because it takes 20 to 25 minutes. And it goes into how are you connected, individual business, organization, or household? How are you using that connection or those things you're doing online? And how are you benefiting from it? And we've had over 70,000. We don't know of any database that exists like that. Over 70,000 businesses, organizations, and households that have taken this. And for the businesses, the reasons why they're going online is to increase the customer loyalty. Number one, 54%. Reduce operating costs. Increase the effectiveness of reaching their customers. I mean, those are pretty significant. And as much as those are drivers, that is to me, that's a glass that's half full. The half empty is, well, each of those should be 100%. Because every business needs to reach those customers, needing to become. Here's what I do, here's what I offer, whether it's a product or service. And so, almost half of all the businesses don't understand what they could and should be doing online. We've heard about job creation and job losses. From the data that we have, For every job lost in an area or because of online activities, there is on average 13.5 jobs created. Now these are not all the tech jobs, the programmers and coders and database people, web design people. These are, hey, we've now reached new customers, we're selling more. Salespeople, packing, and account management and so forth. But those are pretty significant statistics. And in a small rural community where there's thinking, well, our retailers can't compete against Amazon. No, you can't. However, Amazon's going to come anyway because they're accessing through their mobile devices, that. What are you going to do now to identify those niche opportunities that only you can provide? You're already here. Or how do you transform what you do? And here's the other thing. We talked about manufacturing earlier in the day. When you think about all the jobs that have been offshore, well, Germany's a manufacturer, but Germany's still a powerhouse in that European economy, the world economy. Why? Because they haven't gone for those commoditized manufactured goods. You know what? Send them off. We don't want them. Automate them, send them off. We're going to focus on those value-added, those high-value things, and that's what they've done really well. And they have actually really good entrepreneurship over there, which is interesting considering some of the structure that they have. But they've done a really good job of that. We've got the entrepreneurship here. We've got, we're not afraid to fail mentality. If we do, we can move on. What are those value-added and new innovative things that we can do here? Especially now that we're connected and can reach customers anywhere. So to summarize the benefits, we've got a ton of more stats that we can do. But why broadband matters, and I think we all know this, but it's sharing that with the rest of the people in these communities about why this is important. It's about improving the business competitiveness, innovation. Innovation is taking that invention, that new technology, and dispersing it around, democratizing that new way of doing things. That's innovation. I was a part of a Harvard course last year that we invited us to speak about this, and it was really interesting in defining that process. Broadband is a key tool for business retention and expansion that enhances the quality of life for the household, for people living there. There are so many opportunities. I think there's some great examples today, of the opportunities that are now enabled because of broadband and those smart municipal services. These benefits are not considered by the ISPs or the providers. They're off balance sheet. I'll get into that later. And they're outside of that business case. But it's part of the economic case, the community economic case for investing, just like other utilities. And, I'll get into some of the quantification of that, but for just the businesses, what this means in terms of impacts, when you help businesses understand better what they can do online with the existing broadband they have, at a very conservative participation rate of 5%, these are the kinds of impacts for Tennessee that we see. We just completed a study earlier this year that looked at the Tennessee Economic and Community Development, reached out to us and hired us to do a statewide assessment of where's our broadband, what's the supply, and what's the demand. And we subbed out to the engineers to do that supply. Where is that infrastructure? 85% of Tennessee is covered with technically 25.3, the FCC definition. But it's the demand that they didn't understand, and then what to do with it. And the challenge with them is, even though 85% have access, not all of them are actually buying that broadband. They're actually buying the base package. So it's a fantastic thing that Kentucky